And what I want, thank you. What I'd like to do as you all are entering and we're getting ready to start the meeting, please make sure, because we are under this new platform, please make sure that you have signed in, put your name, your organization, and your project role, your ARG project role. Please put that information into the chat so that we'll know who all has made it for their project. Should we do that now? The other thing I'll ask you to do is to please remember to mute yourselves and remain muted unless you are actively speaking with the committee here or the actual project. And I think with that, we are ready to get started. I apologize. I'm trying to move my screens around so I can have what I need at the ready. All right. So welcome again to the Adult Reentry Grant Project Director meeting. As you can tell, we are on a new platform. If you do not recall, we had talked about that at our last project call. So now your project director meetings will have your whole cohort on there. And so it'll be much bigger. So we'll be doing some different activities to make good use of the time, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to, give you that preview so you'll know what to expect going forward. And I want to just say thank you so much. I'm so glad so many of you have cameras on today, and I absolutely love to see your faces. So thank you for those of you who have been able to turn on your cameras and be present with us today. I appreciate that. So for our agenda, we'll do welcome introductions, our standard practice. We'll cover some updates from the BSCC. Then we will not be doing grantee report outs, but we will be doing a breakout room activity that will be similar to your grantee report out process. And then we'll conclude with next steps in your next project director meeting. So to start us off, I will remind you of your ARG project team. First up, we have Adriana Regalado. She is the program analyst assigned to cohort 1. So you all should know her in some way, shape, or form. Adriana.
Thank you, Tanya. Good afternoon, everyone. It is awesome to see you guys. Like Tanya said, we rarely get to see each other, talking to each other. So it's nice to see you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Adriana. Next, Damon Hickman, also program analyst. Go ahead, Damon.
Tanya, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we are very excited to hear how your projects have been doing since the last meeting. So welcome.
This is a mandatory meeting first aid.
Can you? Awesome. Thank you, Damon. Next up, Candace Kefauver. She is also a program analyst assigned to ARG. Candace.
Thanks, Tanya. Hi, everybody. Thanks for spending your afternoon with us. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you all are working on during our activities later today.
Awesome. Thanks, Candace. Danielle Feist, Staff Services Manager. Danny.
Everybody, thank you for joining today. Nice to see everybody.
Thank you, Danny. Of course, there's me, Tanya Thompson. I am your field rep. And we have a new field rep that has joined the ARG team. I do not think he is on the call. Do you guys see Ian out there? I know he's traveling. We'll be in the field this week. So he's traveling up to meet us here in the Bay Area. So if you have not had the occasion to meet him, Ian Silva is a name that you will begin to see as a field rep. You'll see him CC'd on a lot of the emails that we'll be exchanging. So just make yourselves, introduce yourselves when you get a chance to meet Ian. I'm sure you all will love working with him. He is amazing, even though he's only been with us for a few short months. All right, so first thing up on our agenda is some updates from the BSCC. I do want to share that unfortunately, we will not be offering any no-cost extensions for cohort 1. So these projects, which are wrapping up February 28th of 2023, we will not be offering no-cost extensions if you are unable to spend down all of your funds between now and 23. So definitely start to look at your budget, see where you are, make sure that you're able to meet your goals before February of 2023. However, or even though we're not doing no cost extensions, we do want to make sure that you are aware that cohort 3 is in the field. If you are interested in additional ARG funding, please go to the Adult Reentry Grant website. Look for the ribbon for ARG Cohort 3. There is a request for proposals that is out in the field. The application is open to community-based organizations with 501c3 status, and you have to make sure, if you are going to apply, just make sure that you read the RFP in good detail. There are some changes to this RFP that are a little bit different than in cohort 1. So definitely make sure that you read it. But we do encourage that you do apply. Even though you are cohort 1, you are eligible to apply for these cohort 3 funds. If your program, because we already know there will be some overlap, you do not have to plan now what to do with your funds. We will identify for those projects that are awarded for both. If you do get ARG cohort 3, then we'll look at which projects have overlap, and then we'll make some decisions on best ways forward if that is the situation. So if you are interested, go ahead and put your application in, and then we'll deal with the overlap issues after funding. But we do, again, highly encourage that you participate, or that you are aware that that funding opportunity is available. Because I know I haven't said it, the funding amounts for rental assistance, we have 30, oh, why did I forget the amount? 30, just short of 32 million, I believe. I think it's 31,825, yes. $31,825,000 for rental assistance. Each project can apply for up to $2,750,000. For warm handoff, we have the same, or I'm sorry, not the same, but we also have $31,825,000 available for warm handoff, and those projects can apply for up to $750,000. So please take a look at ARG cohort 3. The request for proposals is out in the field. That application period does close April 8th, 5 p.m. So you still have about 3.5 weeks to get that done. Are there any questions on cohort 3? Awesome. All right.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry. There's in the chat, Adrian asked, what is the closing date?
April 8th, 2022 by 5 p.m.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Then I'm going to turn it over to Adriana for the fiscal updates.
Oh, that was quick. All right. So we're going to be providing status updates regarding the invoice and progress report submissions. If your project is not provided with an update, that means we have received invoice 10 and the quarterly progress report, and it's been either completed or pending review by BSCC staff. You will be updated when the submissions have been reviewed. The following projects have an invoice or QPR submission that we are waiting to receive or to complete. We have a safe place. We are missing progress report number 10. Abundant living. We are missing progress report number 10. Anti-recidivism coalition. We are missing progress report 9 and 10. CYO, also known as Community and Youth Outreach, we are missing your quarterly progress report 2. Episcopal, we are pending receipt of invoice 6 and missing progress reports 8 through 10. 5 Keys, we are pending response for invoice 10. Fresno Pacific, we are missing your quarterly progress reports for quarter 9 and 10. Inland Empire, pending your budget modification completion, and quarterly progress reports 8 through 10. JVS SoCal, we are missing your progress report quarter 10. La Clinica, we are pending receipt of your budget modification. Life Community Development, we're pending response regarding your invoice. And we are missing quarter 9 and 10 progress reports. North County Lifeline, we are pending invoice 8 submission. Oakland Private Industry Council, we're pending receipt of additional documentation for your invoice. Plumas Crisis, we are missing quarter 7 through 10 quarterly progress reports. Project Heart, we are pending completion of your budget modification and are requesting quarter 9 and 10 progress report. Transcendence, we are missing quarter 9 progress report. San Diego Second Chance, we are pending completion for invoice 9. Santa Cruz Barrios Unidos, pending submission of invoice 6. And quarterly progress reports quarter 6 through 10. Self-awareness and recovery, we are missing progress reports 9 and 10. Soledad Enrichment, we're pending your budget modification submission. Urban Association, we are missing quarter 9 progress report. West Care, California, we are pending receipt of quarterly progress reports 8 through 10. Whole Systems Learning, we are pending invoice 5 revisions and quarterly progress report quarter 9 and 10. That completes my report out. I do want to let you know that there is some communication happening between some of the grantees that were named. Emails went out just either yesterday or today. So please do know that we are aware of the fact that we are working together to complete invoices and or quarterly progress reports. I also did go ahead and send out emails for your progress reports and received notifications indicating that these quarterly progress reports were updated to the OneDrive previously. Please be aware that ARG does not receive notifications from the OneDrive, letting us know that you guys submitted or uploaded documentation to the OneDrive. Therefore, we do request that anytime anything is updated in the OneDrive, whether it is your invoice workbook, your grantee contact sheet, or you have uploaded your desk review progress reports, that you do email the ARG inbox letting us know. Again, we will remind you that the subject line should contain your grantee your grantee name, the subject, which would then indicate whether it's a progress report, invoice, or a grantee contact sheet update, should be listed on the subject line. And in the body of the email, just let us know we have updated or we have uploaded this documentation ready for your review in the OneDrive. So again, I apologize that we did not receive those we did not update your file for those progress reports previously submitted via the OneDrive, but we do request that you go ahead and email us so that we are aware of that documentation upload. Thank you. That's it for me, Tanya.
Thank you, Adriana. Any questions for Adriana before we move forward? Okay. Hearing none, we will keep it moving. Now it's time for the Zoom room. Whoop, whoop. Now it's time to connect with our colleagues and have an opportunity to get to know each other a little bit. We'll do, for this breakout room at least, we'll follow a bit of our traditional format. And what I'm going to ask you guys to do is when you get into the breakout room, and you might want to take some notes because this screen won't follow you, but we want you to, one, identify a spokesperson for your breakout room. That spokesperson will report back to us after the breakout room is complete. So identify a spokesperson for your breakout room. Each participant, when you are in the room, will do the following. One, identify your name, share your project role, give us a little bit about your project description, and then share any challenges or successes with your project. You can talk about the work in general, or if you want to get personal, you can do that too. The goal is to have you guys talking, networking, getting to know your colleagues in the field who are working alongside you doing these warm handoff services, share some ideas, get some feedback. That's the purpose, and that's what we hope that you are able to accomplish. The team and I will be popping in and out of these breakout rooms just to, you know, check in with you guys and make sure you don't have any questions for us. Any questions before I send you to your rooms? Nope. Fantastic. Fingers crossed. I've been doing pretty good with these lately, so let's see if we are able to continue the record. Fingers crossed, you'll have 45 minutes in your breakout room. You should have about 10 of you in a room. So actually, you know what? I think I might want to, yeah, I think that's good. So there'll be 10 of you or so in a room. So make sure that you are monitoring your time so that everybody can introduce themselves and talk a little bit about those items. Are you guys ready to go? All right, breakout rooms are open. Have fun. See you in a little while. Hi, Abraham.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. Apologize.
Not a problem. You're Alan Hancock, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Let me get you into a breakout room. And I see Darren just joined. A couple folks joining us late. Hi, Arlene.
Hello.
Hang out so we can chat before you go into a breakout room.
No problem. Okay.
Okay. So yes, we're doing breakout rooms. So I'm going to assign you to a room. Basically, you're going to do the things on the screen, introduce yourself, your project role, description, challenges, and successes like we were doing regularly in our regular project calls with the report outs. But the goal is to get you talking and networking with the folks in the breakout room. So I will send all three of you there now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, everybody should now have a place. Awesome.
Yay.
Yay. So let me.
Yeah, I had a couple questions, but I was like,
Awesome. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you all for going into the breakout rooms and chatting and talking to your colleagues. I appreciate that. I hope you guys found value in that. What I'd like to do is use the next half an hour or so to have you all report back on your breakout room discussions. So we'll start with the folks that were in breakout room 1. Did you identify your spokesperson? In breakout room 1, if you didn't pay attention to your room number, would have been Carrie, Darren, Dion, Laura, Ryan, Sylvia.
You got it. I'm the spokesperson.
How did I know that, Carrie?
Typical. Okay, so we had a largely fiscal team, or maybe it was 50-50. It just felt like there was a lot of fiscal folks on there on my part. And then we talked a little bit about invoicing and budget mods specifically, being a lot of back and forth, the budget mod process. And so just kind of some challenge with that and getting getting it all in the right manner. And I think that for a lot of our programs, there are multiple grants, either with BSCC or just in general. So then that's a little confusing. Everybody has a different format and contact person. So we shared a little bit about that. And then in terms of programming, and otherwise everybody had successes.
Oh, that's good.
Programming, it sounds like everybody, also there's a common theme of staffing issues. So I know my programs had staff changes, and a couple other people shared that they had as well. And then when you have, small programs that depend on certain, key people, that can be really tricky when you're getting new people on board. But I think for the most part, everybody is restaffed now and restabilized. So maybe in general in the world, the staffing issues are changing. I don't know. It's the first day I'm fully staffed in all my programs in like 2 years. So that's been intense. And then I think we shared a little bit about our different programs and different models. And it sounds like there's a lot of really neat ways in which the folks coming back into the community are being supported by these grants.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. And to the issue of budget mods, trust me, we understand the pain that you all are in, because trust me, we are in that pain with you. We are in that pain with you. And what I do want to share a little preemptively, but that's okay. I introduced you, well, kind of, you all, I mentioned to you that we had a new field rep, Ian Silva. One of the things that Ian is really strong in is managing Excel worksheets, or managing Excel spreadsheets, and creating formulas. So he has been working on a new template for the budget mod process that we are really, really excited about. It's going to make life so much easier in the budget mod world for ARG. We're just working out the last few tweaks. We've been piloting it internally and using it to process through your budget mod. So I am very, very hopeful that we'll be rolling that out full on in the next month or two. And then that should help make this process not so much of a headache. So definitely by the time you all get approved and awarded for cohort 3, we will have that down to a science. So I am hoping. All right, room 2.
Hi, this is Adrienne from Community Works, and I was pleased to be in the room with Inside Garden program, Community Works, Root and Rebound, North County Lifeline, and California Reducing Disparities Project. So we had a number of challenges in common. First is getting referrals. That seems to be a big challenge for us. Not just us, but everyone in our group. That was a common theme for us, getting referrals. We talked a lot about how to engage parole and exchange information, contact information, so that we can exchange information there. We also have a common challenge around COVID. A lot of us are facing various COVID challenges, either with our participants and clients having COVID challenges in their lives, or previously participating in programs that were getting us referrals, but due to COVID are now have sort of dried up a little bit. So COVID seems to be a theme as well. We also had some housing challenges for some of our clients. In general, transitional housing for women. Inside Garden program talked about that, and a very specific challenge from Root and Rebound of challenges with clients on the 290 registry. So I believe that's for folks who have the sex offender registry. In terms of successes, there were a number of successes that we shared in common, but it was just great to hear that folks are having successes. One success is increased employment outcomes. That was a common both for Root and Rebound as well as for Community Works, feeling we were having some successes there. Also some successes with evidence-based programming and getting that evaluation done. That's for the California Reducing Disparities Project. And so we were just having some successes there. And then I think some increased housing outcomes, that was a success as well, that someone mentioned as well. Yeah, so if anyone on the group in the breakout has anything else they'd want to mention that I may have missed.
Yep, I would add that we were able to provide guaranteed income for returning citizens on one of our folks who returned home from prison. $500 a month, 12 months, no strings attached.
Awesome.
Thanks.
That's great.
Anyone else
Right
on the
on.
team, something I may have missed or didn't capture in my notes you want to mention? That's it then.
Awesome.
Two.
Thank you. Thanks, Adrienne. Thanks, room 2. All right, room 3. That would have been Brandon Smith, Carmen Garcia, Dominique, Olga, Shannon Taylor, Michelle, I think Leanne, Gina, Gary. I think that's all of them. Who's your spokesperson from room 3? Nobody?
Kind of blew it. We didn't name one, so I can report out real quickly. I think we talked about some interesting workforce development stuff that everybody was doing and different things, but I think that we quickly got to the challenges we're having with staffing and retention of staff. And that really became a lot of the conversation. The different things people are trying to retain staff and to attract staff became a lot of what we spoke about. If anybody else from the team that forgot to choose a report outer can join in here and say whatever else we did. Oh, Guy, I think you had some good ideas. Can you jump in?
Oh, I'm sorry about that. But thank you, Michelle, for jumping in like that. But yes, that's what basically we talked about, just the challenges in staffing. And I'm happy to say that a lot of programs have good ideas in retaining, giving them like bonuses and, guest cards and, things that that we need right now. Although we're doing all this, we're still having that challenge to hold staff down, unfortunately. But that's basically what we talked about. We talked about, how to prevent burnout, not COVID, because that's unpreventable. But we talked about just maybe trying to get multiple, hoping that we can get other fundings to help us with the staffing to, I don't know, it's just, I'm talking out of context now, but, but it was just a lot of that. We just talked about the staff challenges that we had, but everybody had really good ideas. So thank you, everybody. Anybody else wants to jump in?
Thanks, room 3. I see a hand from Anna. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Anna.
sorry, I wasn't in that group, but I just want to say it strikes me that there's a lot of talk about staff retention and engagement. I would really highly urge people, if you are involved with writing grants in your organization, put higher salaries in your grants. It really strikes me that as somebody who writes grants for people who I'm a program manager who are in like lower level positions than me, when I review grants sometimes, how low the salaries are that people include. Let's remember that these are valuable staff members. We should, if you're writing grants, put in numbers that actually reflect the value that you have for the staff. And sorry, I'm sure I'm teaching to the choir, but I think really the reason we're having retention issues is people are not getting paid what they're worth. We have crazy inflation right now. I live in the Bay Area. It is just not okay to not be paying people, especially if we're the ones writing the grants and budgeting to do to do this. Sorry, on my soapbox really briefly, but I really feel passionate about this because I think, corporations pay their people well. Why can't nonprofits pay our people a living wage?
Well, we did actually talk about that. And I just wanted to jump back in and say, because I think everybody was really thoughtful about that. I think our challenge is that even when we're paying people well, the work is hard and it can't be done remotely for most of our agencies. And we have lots of people, we have staff they've lost family members and, and so coming in and working. So even if we're paying good salaries, it's still really hard to hold on to people right now. And I mean, this is a pretty significant problem everywhere right now is retention. And so, but I think that our clients particularly are very impacted by turnover. And so what can we do to hold on to staff so that they don't suffer the negative impact of losing a teacher mid-session or a case manager? And those are things we were all talking about.
That's great. That sounds like it was a really good conversation and definitely probably one we need to spend more time on. So we at ARG will be absolutely taking notes on that, and do not be surprised if you see that conversation come up again in our next Zoom room. I do think that is important. But yes, I do agree too with Anna about making sure that you are putting salaries in your grant that are actually market rate, right? It's not, it doesn't serve you to write a grant and be awarded the grant, but then you can't complete the grant because you can't get the staffing. So that's definitely something that should be highly considered in terms of how you're making that work out. So cool, great. Thank you. Room 3. Room 4, that would have been Amanda, looks like Chloe, Jeanette, Maria, Melissa, Paulina, Tiffany, and Vanessa. Oh, we had all ladies in that group. How funny.
So similar to the previous group, we didn't assign someone, but I can talk a little bit about the things that we discussed. So everybody did introductions, they did a report out of their programs, how they're going. I think that one of the commonalities that most of us had regarding the challenges that they're currently experiencing is definitely has been the impact of COVID with enrollments. Another one was client engagement. How do we keep the clients engaged in the program and be able to continue providing the services that the program offers, or getting them enticed to participate in the program? I want to say majority of the ones that presented had a decrease with enrollments in the last quarter, but it sounded like they were pretty much working on increasing the enrollments for this current quarter, which is quarter 11. I think that's pretty much kind of like what we discussed. I don't know if I know Maria talked about her program and Amanda as well. I don't know if they have any other input to provide. But our conversation mainly went around, one of the things that we did discuss was the challenges and the gap between, which I think we already talked about it before, for the population of the reentry population, how there's a gap between the services regarding housing. So a lot of the housing programs, you have to have the you have to meet the homelessness criteria to be able to offer services. But if you have people exiting the institutions that are either treatment or sober living facilities, then technically they're not considered to be homeless, therefore they don't qualify for that. So for the communities that did not receive the rental assistance program through the warm handoff, it has made it more challenging to be able to place or link individuals to permanent housing.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, room 4. Room 5, it would have been someone from 5 Keys, a phone number that starts with 818, Macheo, Mary Lacey, Mick, Ronnie Rose, Roseanne, and Vina from Root and Rebound.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, similar to the last 2 groups, we did decide somebody, but it was halfway through. So I wasn't taking notes until then. So hopefully anybody could step in when they have if they want to add something else. But we had 5 Keys, Home Free, Transcendence, Children and Family Services, No More Tears, Friends Outside in LA County, CYO, Us YEP, and Root and Rebound. And some of the challenges, obviously, COVID and COVID for some of the programs that were working inside the prison, that obviously was a bigger problem because it basically just shut off services entirely, at least those components where they're doing it inside the prisons. Some of them were, a lot of the recruitment also took place inside the prisons, and so that was a problem. Some people, a lot of the participants are in transitional programs, and like those programs had a lot of restrictions due to COVID about their participation and other things. Some of the programs are very hands-on, and they just could not do that successfully through Zoom and remotely. I think, what else do we have here? Some providers, like for us, for example, we serve 18 to 30-year-olds, and then the partners that we work with that serve the 25 to 30-year-olds, they, during COVID, just kind of shut down their operations entirely. And so that kind of severed a big kind of part of our BSCC program in getting people in that age range. And I think similarly to what some other groups talked about, we didn't talk about staff retention, but we did talk about supporting staff in general, specifically staff with lived experiences to the clients, and supporting the kind of and helping them kind of deal with the vicarious trauma that they experience through the work. And so we did talk a little bit about kind of what we are doing as agencies to support our staff. Macheo shared some good resources that they've used to do trauma-informed trainings and support. So that took up a little bit of our conversation. Successes, it seems like most agencies are getting back to kind of pre-pandemic, at least, workflows. And I think that's about it. If anybody else from the group wants to add anything.
That was actually quite a bit. So thank you so much, Ronnie, and room 5. I will say that in some of our other calls this month, we have heard some of these themes are definitely recurring. And the one about, I saw that I think Amanda had put in the chat earlier about mental health for staff and things like that. Excuse me, and just being aware of the trauma that the staff are enduring as a result of that vicarious trauma, et cetera, and making sure we're taking care of them and taking care of ourselves. So there are some really good things popping out. Room 6, that was Adriana. All right, room 6.
So I took notes. I had to step out for just a second because our sync broke. But so if I missed something, somebody please step in for me. We had a variety of organizations actually in our group. It was really kind of amazing to hear what everybody is doing. Some of the challenges, of course, we're hearing this over and over, the COVID, both reaching, COVID just getting to our clients was a huge issue. And of course, how that deals with staff and what that's done with mental health for both staff and clients. All of that was a topic of conversation that we reached. Also, referrals was a big, huge issue. Almost every person brought up referrals as a problem, something that they're having to deal with. Technology is also something that's quite a big deal. For the people reentering, it's not just the supplies and the training, but it also adds to what is already a really overwhelming process, the reentering process. And so I think that's really important that everybody seemed to agree that it was really crucial that we have not only supplies, but training so that people can get online and they can get what they need. And it, of course, it even spills over into healthcare and travel and all of these issues, which we also spoke about. We did discover, somebody in our group, and pardon me for not remembering who, brought up the fact that Medi-Cal helps with travel. So I think that's something, in case you didn't know that, I think that's a big deal. So I wanted to bring that up. And for the travel, at least one of the organizations is including bus passes in their grant writing to make sure that people have access to transportation. Housing was also brought up, which led also to healthcare, and it was connected with our healthcare conversation for some people. Again, not just the mental health of the staff, but also the clients, specifically recovery programs and the issue with relapse problems. So at least two of the people, the organizations discussed that as an issue, having to deal with that and find ways to deal with that. Also, what was brought up, which I thought was interesting and didn't know, was that clients, as they re-enter, they're only given 1 month of medication. So it's crucial that they understand how to navigate the medical system, how to get to doctors and get the help that they need. I believe, and I hope I'm not misspeaking, that Medi-Cal is now providing coverage for some of that recovery work. People are also being sent to counties that they're not from. And that led us, well, actually we started with, Sam brought up the collaborative issues. If we could collaborate, the organizations could collaborate with one another, because they may have somebody from, they may be in Oakland and somebody from Southern California needs services. And so having a comprehensive list of who's doing what would be really helpful, so that people can reach out to other organizations giving those services in different counties if somebody is reaching out to them from a county they're not serving. I think that was really important. And then some of the successes, I think people are getting people employed. I think that's huge. One of the things that we're doing, I didn't have an opportunity to share too much of this, but a couple of people brought up in our group, the lived experience, bringing people with lived experience back to the community that we're trying to serve, I think is a really big deal. And a few people mentioned that it's really going to be helpful, getting people the treatment they need. A lot of people are having success in that. So that's really wonderful. And then getting people jobs, the guaranteed income, so that when they come back, they're a secure part of our community. So if I missed anything, please jump in, anybody.
You're good. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, room 6. All right, room 7. I think it's Ann Merritt. I'm not sure. Arlene, Damian Rodriguez, Diana Ellery, Evelyn, Mo, and Tammy Cooper.
Yeah, I believe our spokesperson, Nikki Martinez, she had to leave for a class. So she shot me a message on chat and asked me to do the report out. I don't have notes, so I'm scrambling my brain to remember what was said. But we started out really just introducing ourselves, our organization, our role, and did a little bit of a check-in with each other, how we were feeling today, to just kind of get to know each other. And then spoke to the challenges and successes like we've had, and most of the conversation revolved around COVID. And there was really mixed experiences of, COVID challenging us to move to more of online platforms. And we also, there was such a mix of roles in our group, from financial to administrative to program managers, and just what that process looked like, and whether it was better to create systems to serve more of an online platform in the benefits of that, or find ways to still be in the office and do in person, and create new systems because maybe people couldn't get to you as they once could. We spoke to how some of the silver linings to going to virtual platforms, and now transitioning back to in person, and how we're going to carry those things forward, to carry both. To be able to use the new systems we've created, and also find ways to return to in-person programming and in-person gathering. How now, because we've expanded with all these tools, what that looks like going forward. And I invite anyone who is in the group with us to also chime in and share, because I'm sure I missed many things. Anyone, if you wish.
Sounds like you had a pretty comprehensive off the brain memory there, Mo.
Thank you.
But thank you so much. And I appreciate you coming in off the cuff and making it happen. So not a problem. That was room 7. All right. Room 8.
Hi, everyone. I'm Graciela from North County Lifeline, and I'm the reporter for Group 8. And we had a large group, and everyone was from a different organization, so we didn't have time to go through all of our intros and programs. But similarly to what some of the other teams have shared, we also discussed some of those similar challenges as it relates to staffing, not only filling all of the positions, but also payment or providing incentives for staffing. COVID was a big one, and similar to what everyone else shared, enrollment, processing the referrals, and providing services to clients was sometimes difficult. However, a lot of the organizations shared their solutions or creative ways that they were able to still provide services to clients, such as creating some form of take-home packages that included the material that they needed to do the work from home, or they were also able to provide in-person services because of the large space that they had, or because they had outside space to be able to do that through safely. Additionally, Senator Cha also took this opportunity to provide medical services as it related to COVID. So whether it was the vaccine or providing outreach to the higher need communities that were impacted by COVID. Another challenge that was shared was also housing. It is challenging to find housing, either because of certain policies that might prevent reentry individuals from living in certain places. But 2 of the organizations shared the work that they're doing as it relates to tiny houses, or the plans that they have for tiny houses and how that will be helpful. One of the other challenges that was mentioned briefly was the impact of substance use and relapse, and lives lost to substance use. And with that, there was also some successes that were shared, and most of it related to the participants and their desire to give back to their community, whether it be through creating an alumni network and putting together a play for the community, or creating speaking engagements to give back to the community through the schools and speaking to youth or other residential facilities. There were some personal successes as it relates to people being, individuals being successful with going to college, getting their education done, and employment as well.
Sorry, thank you. I went on mute, but then I started talking, but I was still on mute. So thank you, Room 8. Good information. It sounds like you guys were really having some really good conversations, and that really is the goal of this. To make sure that you have the opportunity to connect with others who are doing this work and bounce ideas and such and such. And it sounds like that's what you guys were doing today. So that's awesome. 2 more. We got Room 9, Abraham, Barbara, Kathy, Doric, Catherine, Melissa, Richard, and Scott.
Well, I'll talk, Richard. Erica was supposed to be the spokesperson, but I was reading in the chat where she took off. So I guess I'll pick it up. We talked about a lot of things, and first of all, I want to say, Ms. Thompson, I think it was a great idea that you had the breakout rooms because we were able to cover a lot of topics and just share, some of our struggles and things of that nature. Some of the things that we discussed again was already stated earlier, had to do with frustration with housing or housing issues for the people who are getting out of prison. We also discussed some of the challenges relative to documentation in terms of like Social Security, obtaining Social Security cards, especially during the COVID period, in light of the fact that a lot of the places don't allow you to enter. So the individuals were having to send their documentation in the mail and then hope that it gets sent back to them, and so that was a problem. We also discussed just some of the restrictions that COVID has caused as far as the interacting with the potential clients. And some of what I addressed had to do with being that I am formerly incarcerated or system impacted, if you will, how I was able to meet with individuals who are also working in some of the other programs that I interact with, as far as like being able to get access to potential clients and sign people up during the restrictive times. And a lot of it have to do with going through for myself, the parole agency, and them doing like the Zoom, the PAC meetings that they have, and to where they like have a lot of presenters come on the screen, and then they're able to basically connect with some of the clients that way. Some of the other organizations just shared again some of their specific challenges, and for some of the success, we really didn't get so much into the success stories. We talked a lot about just sharing information, and potentially the suggestion came up, and I see it on the hotline, was the thing was like a collaboration of sorts between the various organizations, so we can help each other with the different resources that we have, and where one program is not able to do something, the other one can kind of help the other one out, overlapping, so to speak. So that's pretty much what we discussed in our group.
Awesome. That's great. And I saw in the chat, someone was asking about getting access to other ARG projects and contact information. I did put that link to the ARG dashboard into the chat again. So please feel free. We've been encouraging you all to utilize that platform. Please get on that link. There is a section there for ARG rental assistance, and a second link for ARG warm handoff. You can find all of the cohort 1. We have not updated for cohort 2 people, but we do have all of the cohort 1 folks in there. So if you're looking to collaborate with other ARG projects, that is a good place to start. So please do check the chat. There is a link in there, and that way you can get that piece of that information to build better collaborations. Thank you so much, Richard. And room 9, last up is room 10, which included Betty, Carol, John, Kimberly, Lou, Mary Weaver, and Troy Thomas. No one from room 10?
Where's Troy? Come on, Troy. Troy.
You know what's funny, Carol? For whatever reason, I almost called on Troy too. So it must be in the cards for you, Troy.
Here, you can.
That was a setup.
So no one's going to tell us what happened in room 10?
I mean, I'm happy to jump in. Troy, I was waiting for you. I thought you had assigned, but if you would like to pass it, I would, I'd do it if you wanted me to. What feels right to you, Troy?
You got it.
All right, great. I
Don't
just
be
didn't wanna
shy,
overstep.
Troy. We don't bite, I promise.
Well, okay. So, thank you for that. So it was just a great opportunity. Again, I was just really grateful to be in this space for everybody. So thank you, Tanya, for creating this. I think it's just always great to be reminded that we're connected to this larger network of folks providing some really meaningful services to an underserved population. And so it's just always just that spirit of community and solidarity, I think is super encouraging. So yeah, we just talked about, had an opportunity to share about our programs. You know, I know Troy was being shy, but I really appreciated hearing about his experience and the work that he does at PV Jobs and just getting folks connected to the essential services. And that was something that I found like it was a success for everybody. It was just this like growth and excitement that we've all experienced, kind of doing some new things in the last year of pivoting with COVID, learning from, you know, doing things like case management, and, you know, growing in a lot of our roles. Let me see. Yeah, just building community and relationships was something that we thought was really important. A lot of the groups spoke to that of just like, what are those direct services that other folks are providing in the community that we can tap into, whether it's jobs or education or clothing or, but, you know, just kind of building out that larger network wherever we are. Some of the shared challenges that we kind of talked about was just keeping consistent and clear communication with our clients, you know, just with the COVID challenges. And then, you know, folks actually progress and they get jobs and we're trying to work our case management around the jobs and the successes, you know, and then for other reasons, folks, you know, don't stay engaged. But like, what are some of the creative ways that we can continue to engage with the folks that we serve and provide those services? Those are the notes I captured. I don't know if anybody else from our group was able to share, but I think the biggest encouragement was just being in the space with other folks.
That's awesome. Great. Yeah. Thank you, Kimberly. All right, Troy, we got you next time. So for this piece, I do want to just say thank you again. I am glad to hear you all are finding some value in the space. That is ideal. Going to this larger platform, we will see this frequently in our project director calls. There will be time for you all to break out into groups. They will not be the same people every time. Fingers crossed that Zoom mixes you guys up. But this will be a regular part of your project director's calls because that is the goal. We do these calls so that you can communicate and connect with others who are doing this work and provide supports and stuff for one another. So that is phenomenal. I do thank you again for your time and your attention and your participation in getting that part of the discussion handled. So up next, I am going to, we are going to start a conversation about the CMV, the Comprehensive Monitoring Visit. I can only assume that many of you are aware that we will be doing comprehensive monitoring visits. If you've heard me say over the last couple of weeks or so that we're out in the field, well, our CMVs have now kicked in full swing. We were out in the field last week doing visits. We'll be out in the field this week doing visits. So I will start reaching out to all of the projects at some point over the next several weeks and months to come out and visit your sites. Some will do, some will be virtual, some will be in person. So in order to help you guys get ready for that and understand how critical this visit is, I want to take some time to walk you through the CMV process. And to start that, I'm going to start with telling you how to find the information on the website. So if you are at the bscc.ca.gov webpage, you can start there. You will select grant programs. That'll take you to the
I'll be
CPG.
right there.
That'll take you to the CPGP page. And then on that page, you'll scroll down here to the comprehensive monitoring visit tool. What we do want you to really look at though is this user guide, because that one will have a little extra information for what we ask you to complete in the tool. The other thing that will be useful to you in this process, in your grant process period, is your grant administration guide, which is also located on that same page under grantee resources. This guide may be helpful to you in your CMV prep, but it's also there for you throughout your grant experience so that you'll have a way to connect with what it is that BSCC is asking for. So these are the tools you'll want to access. Now, before I get into the tool, I want to just kind of give you a little bit of background on why we do the CMV and kind of what to expect in the process. So first of all, we do a comprehensive monitoring visit because BSCC does have the responsibility to ensure responsible use of the public fund. But the other bigger reason I think to do these visits is one, to have an opportunity to really see your programs in action. It really is an opportunity for you to highlight your outcomes, for you to highlight your processes, for you to highlight just all of the great work that you are doing. And so we really want you to come at the tool from that perspective. Since I've been doing a couple of them, what I'm finding is a lot of people are nervous and so on and so forth. It is not an audit. We do not audit. Our goal is to help you be prepared for the audit. So all of the things that we ask you for are things that will be required if your project is selected for an audit, or if for some reason you are required to undergo an audit from the from the state auditor's office. And so the things that we ask for help you be prepared. So help us help you, and let's get through this process and make sure that you have all of your little duckies in a row. Who should be present when we come to do your CMV? We should have your project director.
Cedric Jolly, he's going to paint 110C.
Your project director, your authorized financial officer, your invoice preparer, and your day-to-day program contact. Those are the 4 key people that should be there. Additionally, we want any other staff that you have that are relevant to ARG. So if you have case managers or housing navigators or, other staff that are critical to the program, we'll want them to have a piece in the process as well. Subcontractors, if you are subcontracting any of your direct services to another NGO, they will need to be not necessarily present at your site, but they will be involved in the CMV process. And they will be responsible for the same pieces of information that you are responsible for. And so it's very important that you are familiar with what our CMV requirements are if you are subcontracting, because then you will need to make sure that you are working with your subcontractor to have all of these pieces in place, to include policies, to include fiscal controls, to include timesheets, and all of those pieces are going to be required from your subcontractor, but it's your responsibility to make sure they have it. We will want to see it, but you are responsible if they do not have it. They are not in trouble with us. You have to make sure they get on track. So it really is important to emphasize that your subcontractors are a huge responsibility for you in this grant process. So please, please, please make sure that you are rocking and rolling with those guys as well. And then lastly, we want to see clients. We want to see and talk to and engage with your program in action. If you are facilitating groups, if you're doing, if you're running housing, transitional housing shelters, all of those pieces that are ARG related, we want to be able to see our dollars in action. So we want to be able to really enjoy and engage with the work that you're doing. So you'll be given an agenda or you'll be given the opportunity to create the agenda for us. That'll design where we are at different times of the day. So you will create what that looks like. You'll tell us, for our programming stuff, we'll want to go this way and we'll need to be there at this time because that's when the stuff is happening, et cetera, et cetera. So that'll be up to you, but those are the things that we'll want to see. With regard to the expectations of the CMV, couple of things to make note of that you'll want to make sure are available. We will need access to your records. So in your grant agreement, we have some language that says, you know, these are the things that we need to get access to. The key piece there is to also understand that we need access to those same records for your subcontractors if you have them. So you'll want to make sure that, you know, the records that we'll need are available. The scope of this visit, again, is for us to ensure that you have the pieces that you need to effectively run the program that you requested funding for. Again, it is a monitoring, it is not an audit. If you say you have something, we are going to want to see it. It's that very nifty cliche line we like, trust but verify, right? So if you tell me you have a policy, I want to see your policy. If you tell me you have timesheets, I want to see those timesheets. So anything that you have, please make sure that you have that documents available and ready for review. After we complete the comprehensive monitoring visit, I will compose a comprehensive monitoring visit report, which will be documented in the CMV tool that you yourself will fill out. You will get the CMV tool. You'll be required to complete that tool in advance of our visit, and then we'll use that tool to guide the conversation around the information and the different things that we will want to see. So you'll want to make sure that you have all of that information available. If for some reason there are things missing, if you do not have all of the information, et cetera, one of the things that may happen is we'll either end up with findings or no findings, right? If we have findings that are not major, so say, for example, we wanted to see a specific timesheet that you couldn't locate, but you have all of your other timesheets, it's just that one you can't find it. That would be considered an insignificant finding, right? Not a big deal. You couldn't produce it, but maybe you can go back and find it or get it. Maybe the employee has a copy or something. There'll be a way to fix it, right? A significant finding may be something along the lines of you have no timesheets, right? So there's a big difference. And so if we end up with significant findings, there are a couple of options that we can deal with, which will be one, we can do a compliance improvement plan, which is a process that we use to help support and strengthen your standing with us, or making sure that you have the pieces that are critical for your program and your organization with us. Or we can do, we can engage in a full-on corrective action process, which doesn't happen often, but if it is necessary, we can escalate up to our executive director to get involved. The other thing that could happen is if the findings are severe enough, they could result in sanctions. There are 3 sanctions that the BSCC could use, which would be 1, to withhold or reduce the amount of any payments pending. We could reduce the amount of the current grant agreement, or we could terminate the grant agreement with proper due process. Again, I say all this so that you'll know what the regulatory pieces are, but I want you to know that, again, it's not an audit and we are not here to find anything. Our real goal is, if we find that you don't have all of the pieces in place, our real goal is to help you get them in place if that's possible. So it's really important that we're open, transparent, and are able to have open conversation. Additionally, if for some reason I have identified something as a finding, but you disagree, when I give you your report, then you are more than welcome to disagree with those findings or challenge my recommendation for a compliance improvement plan. And in order to do that, you would just document it in your response to my comprehensive monitoring visit report. So that's the general stuff that you'll need to know about the CMV. And so now what I want to do is walk through the CMV tool with you and just emphasize some of those key points and kind of what we're looking for and how to make sure you're prepared. Before I go into the tool, are there any questions right now? Great. So you'll just open up the tool. Actually, that's not correct. Once I reach out to schedule your visit and we agree on a date and time, I will send you some documents. It will be this particular user guide. It will also include a CMV tool, which is fillable as a Word document so that you can type in your information and your answers on that tool. And then you will be able to upload that to us in your OneDrive. And then I'll also include some expectation language and a copy of an agenda for you to modify as necessary for how you want to structure our visit. At any rate, once you get your comprehensive monitoring tool and you're ready to prepare, you're going to go to your tool, open up your user guide and have them parallel so you'll make sure that you're giving us the right information. Our tool starts with the administrative review, but please note you do not have to plan your visit in this order. We can take these parts of the tool out of order. So if it is more convenient for us to do your program review first, then we'll do the program review piece, then we can do fiscal or whatever works for your staffing and your program situation is what we will do. So the first thing we're going to ask is whether or not you have an executed, a copy of your fully executed grant agreement. Remember, a fully executed grant agreement is when both your organization and our organization have signed. So you should have your CEO and our deputy director's signature on your grant agreement. If you do not have that, look for it now. So if you need it, we can get it to you, right? But you should make sure that you have a copy of your fully executed grant agreement in your official file. Now let's talk about these files. What we are looking for when we talk about an official file, we want to make sure that you have a centralized location to keep, house, or access all of your ARG relevant data, information, and record keeping. We do understand that sometimes this may contain a couple of different files, but we just want to know, do you have this information readily available, accessible? It can be a physical copy hard file, maybe you put everything in binders, or it could be an electronic file and you just have a system where you create your file folders, et cetera, et cetera. At any rate, we just need to make sure that you, 1, have an official file for your adult reentry grant project, and 2, that you have these documents available and accessible within your file. So we'll need a copy of your grant agreement in your official file. We'll want to know that you have a copy of the grant administration guide readily available. for project staff and for, of course, your own use. And by here, you do not have to have the grant guide printed. The electronic copy is acceptable. So if we're asking you for the grant guide, if you can show us how you navigate to it, how do you get to the grant guide? If you've saved a link to it or if you saved it on your desktop, we need to know that you know how to access that information. We also want to make sure your project staff can access that information. And so we're going to ask you, does your staff know how to use the guide? And so when we're talking to your staff, we will ask them questions about using the grant administration guide. So make sure that your staff are aware of it, make sure your staff know where to find it, and make sure they know how to use it if they have to use it. For an organizational chart, your organizational chart has to reflect ARG. So for your organizational chart, what we are looking for is where ARG falls in the structure of your overall organization, and then what the reporting structure is for ARG within that organization, as well as the reporting structure of your ARG team. So your organizational chart has to be a visual representation of your organizational structure and where ARG is within that structure, as well as all of the different positions and their reporting structure within ARG. Okay, so do not just give me your organizational chart. That will not be sufficient. You want to make sure that you have edited your organizational chart in such a way that it also includes the adult reentry grant stuff. It does not have to be separate from your overall organizational chart, but we do need to see the ARG. Duty statements. Do you have duty statements for your grant funded staff? For this question, job descriptions are not sufficient. They will not pass muster. If you give me job descriptions, that answer will be no. What we're looking for are duty statements that are specific to activities related to the grant. For example, many of your organizations are managing multiple programs, and some of those program rules may carry between the different project types. So let's say you have a housing navigator that serves in several different program categories. What we want to know is, what is that position doing unique to ARG? And then if your answer is, well, they don't do anything that's unique to ARG, these are their roles, then the question is, how are you delineating the difference between their ARG duties and their other duties? So those things need to really be specific for ARG so that, again, we can understand and know who the ARG folks are and what their duties are as relating to ARG. And the reason we want to know this is because as we're looking at your invoices and we're looking at your program model, we want to be able to say that, yes, this all makes sense. This all makes sense. This all makes sense. Our goal is to be able to tie back all of the funds that we give to you. We want to make sure that we can connect them back to activities and duties that are performed by the staff that you have hired. So it is important that this is separated out for ARG. Timesheets, and this is another big one. And I know I've been talking about this one quite a bit over the last several months. So for your timesheets, one, you absolutely should have timesheets. Absolutely should have timesheets. So please make sure you have timesheets. How are you tracking the time and making sure that people are, working the hours they say they're working? And then on top of that, you want to make sure that you have functional timesheets or conduct time studies for split funded positions. This program has no match, so the match piece of it doesn't apply. However, if you have staff that are not full funded by ARG, you have to have time tracking to demonstrate where their ARG hours are earned. Please note, we do not pay budget, we pay actual. So when we come out and look at timesheets, if we're looking at the invoice and we're looking at the salaries and benefits that you submitted, we want to see the timesheets that match that. If your staff are less than full funded by ARG, we want to know, what are they doing in the full day? How are they breaking up their time for ARG versus their time for any of the other projects or whatever else they are doing for the rest of your organization? So you'll want to make sure that you absolutely have functional timesheets, a way to track how much time is actually spent on ARG, and that's what you should be billing to ARG. Staff positions, we just want to make sure that all of the positions that you proposed for your project have been filled. And if not, we just need you to explain what the challenges are and what your plan is. Are you anticipating any changes to your staff or the project? And if yes, explain those. That one's pretty cut and dry. We just want to know kind of, do we need to be expecting any major shifts to come between now and the end of the project? Subcontracts, if you do provide subcontracted services, then you'll need to document those subcontracts, who they are. We'll want to make sure that you have the subcontract awards in your official project file. And for your copies of your subcontract awards, that basically means we want your contract or MOUs with those subcontracted agencies. We also want to look at 8A, which asks if those contracts contain the required language from the BSCC contract. So access to the program and the records, access to the facility, the non-discrimination, civil rights compliance. You have to make sure that your MOUs and subcontracts contain this language. We want to see those MOUs and those subcontracts, and we are going to be looking for that information specifically. So you will want to make sure that that information is documented in that contract and that we can identify it easily. And then this one here, E, asks whether or not your subcontracts are in compliance with the conflict of interest law. So your role here is to go back to your RFP and look at the ESC list, the list of the people who were on the ESC panel. In looking at that list, you have to look at the board of directors for your subcontract, and you need to make sure that there are no conflicts of interest for the people who are on the ESC committee, who prepared or developed the project, the RFP, and those who are in your subcontract, and make sure that anyone from the ESC is not benefiting by getting this subcontract. So either they're connected to an organization or their family is connected to the organization. So you have to do your due diligence to ensure compliance with the conflict of interest laws. If you have any questions about the conflict of interest laws, please reach out to me and I can make sure that you have what you need for that. But that's the key in-depth piece on subcontracts that I want to make sure I'm covering with you guys. And then for the NGO, here is where you will have to make sure that all of your subcontracts comply with the requirements of our NGOs. And that is, be duly organized, be in good standing for 6 months, have a physical address, So for that one, you'll want to make sure that one, you have these people listed on your Appendix B form that you submit to us. And two, you'll want to make sure that you've done your due diligence and confirmed that they are in good standing vis-a-vis the Secretary of State website. And you should probably also confirm that they are in fact 501c3 and meet that IRS determination as well. For the budget modifications, we will look to see if you have your budget modifications maintained in the official file. And then we're going to want to know if you made any substantial modifications that were not approved by BSCC. I have no reason to explain. I am unable to explain to you why the budget modification piece is in admin review and not fiscal, but for whatever reason, that's how this form was designed. So that's where the question will show up. But anyway, just make sure that you can point us to where the official file is and if you have your budget mods attached. Please note that having access to the invoice workbook in and of itself does not qualify as having your budget mod in your official file. Okay, so just keep that in mind. We want to know that you have a place to keep all of your information as it pertains to ARG, not necessarily around the documents that we give you, like your invoice workbook. So that's the admin review section. Section 2 is the civil rights and non-discrimination. For ARG, because ARG is a state grant, you only have to answer questions 1 and 2. So that makes it easy, and it takes away about 3 pages of questions for you to answer. So here we want to know, do you have documented policies or posters or whatnot that discuss your non-discrimination status or process for participants? So we want to know, how are you ensuring that people are not denied services because of their status in a protected class? So you should have that in a policy somewhere. You should have it somewhere in your office perhaps, or however, but we want to be able to see that you have, that you are in compliance with the non-discrimination policy for those people who are receiving services. And then we want the same thing for your employees. I know it's most common that you'll have this information in your admin or HR policies for employees, but we also want to make sure that you have it for your participants. And then we want to make sure that you can show it to us. So be prepared to show us and tell us how your agency does those 2 things. And that's the civil rights review. So we'll skip all these pages, skip. And then we get into the fiscal review. For your fiscal review, we're going to ask you, 1, do you have an official budget file for the project? Again, it does not have to be hard copy. It can be electronic, but you just need to be able to show us, boom, ARG budget file. And you should have a copy of your official budget in there, not the invoice workbook, but you should have your official budget in the budget file. We want to know, do you have fiscal policies and procedures? And if you tell me you do, then we want to see them. The other thing we'll want to know with your fiscal policies is we want to know that they're accessible to your grant staff as well. And so we'll ask you, hopefully you can share with us just by way of telling us how you keep them or where they're located. That'll help us be able to identify if staff can access them. But we'll also ask staff as we talk to them as well. And then the next important piece here is we'll want to know how your agency processes claims, payments, and reimbursements. So we'll want to know if you are doing the things that you say or that your policies require you to do. So we're going to ask you to verbally tell us what this process entails and how you guys manage that process on site. Section 3, we'll look at invoices. Now, typically what'll happen on your CMV visit, if I'm so lucky to continue to have my senior auditor with me, Juanita will do a lot of this part, our senior auditor, but she won't always travel with me. So some of the time it'll be me as well. Nevertheless, what we'll do is we will look at your invoices. We'll pull 1 or 2 randoms and we'll look at your invoices and look at all of your supporting documentation. We're going to we're wanting to make sure that your spending is on track. And if it's not, why not? Then we want to know if you have your invoices and information within your official file. And then we want to know if this is like your supporting documentation. So we'll want to look at the supporting documentation and make sure that those documents line up with the expenses and the invoice. Same thing with D, salaries and benefits. We want to know that we'll want to look for whether or not the costs that are documented can easily be tied back to the timesheets and the payroll registers. We want to know, do you have a calculation methodology for your indirect costs? So remember, you are not required to submit your indirect costs disbursements with your supporting documentation. So you don't have to send us the backup for how you spent your indirect costs, but you do need to contain or gather that backup. So when we come out, we'll want to look at how are you charging indirect costs? Can you support the indirect costs that you've claimed to date? So we'll be looking at your records to make sure that you actually have that amount in indirect cost and can substantiate it based on the documentation that has been submitted. And then of course, we'll make sure that all of these things continue to meet contract eligibility. So I think it would be pertinent to throw in a side note here and say, just because the invoice is approved does not mean that when we do a deeper review that we will not find issues that may need to be addressed. So just to say, just because the invoice has been approved, it does not mean that it will pass all of the muster of the CMV review of the invoice. So that's kind of what you can expect for that invoice portion. For the tracking, we want to know, how do you track your BSCC dollars? Do you have a separate account? Do you have a coding system? So we'll want to look at how are you monitoring your ARG dollars versus your other program dollars? Do you have a tracking system for purchases? How are you logging and tracking your grant related purchases? Are you using, I think in QuickBooks, you guys can document that stuff. Again, not my wheelhouse, but that is the type of information that we want to know. How are you tracking your purchases? Do you have a system?
Excuse me, Tanya.
Yes.
This is Mary Lou with Santa Cruz Barrios Unidos.
Yes,
and I'm sorry because I'm driving and I'm trying to get back to the office. But I have a quick question regarding the what you just spoke about. So on the invoices and timesheets, okay. When you come for the site visit, how far are you going back? What are we supposed to be looking at? Like, you know, is there a timeline that you're going to be looking at from the get-go, or are you looking at 3 months ago, or, you know, what's the timeline that we should be prepared to make sure we have all the answers the best that we can?
For the entire grant period.
Okay, well, that I just opened a can of worms. Okay, I just wanted to know that. Thank
Not
you.
a problem.
Thank
Thank you. Good question, Mary Lou.
Thank you.
So we'll want to know that you have a system for tracking your purchases and receipts, etc. We'll also want to know if those tracking reports are reviewed by management and program staff. So you will need to be prepared to have that discussion with us and tell us what that process is, et cetera, et cetera. We want to know if you have general ledgers. Can you provide us with general ledgers? I know our senior auditor often requests your general ledgers. She'll also ask for your P&L statements and things like that. So we will do some reviews around those pieces as well. If you have purchased or been approved to purchase equipment or fixed assets, we'll want to ask some questions around that. If you have purchased, we want to make sure that you have your assets listed appropriately. So when you have, and again, this is not my wheelhouse. So when you have like fixed assets, whether it's a van or like certain computer equipment, like maybe you leased a big printer, things like that, we'll want to know, do you have a process of tracking and documenting those assets and making sure that they're maintained? Oh, that's actually D, that's the inventory list. So we will want to look for that. C asks if you had prior approval from the BSCC to make purchases of those fixed of those equipment and fixed assets that were more than $3,500 per item. Now I'm going to give you two figures. Okay, hold on, Melissa. I'll get to that question. We have two figures I'm going to throw out at you. So as you see on the screen, equipment and fixed assets that were more than $3,500 require prior approval from the BSCC. Any purchase that you make for any area of your program, not just equipment and fixed assets, but any purchase that you make for your program that is $3,500 or more per item. So if you are buying one computer that is $3,700, you have to get BSCC approval before you make that purchase. If you buy one computer that's $3,490, you do not need BSCC approval to make that purchase. However, for an item to count as as equipment and fixed assets for that budget category, it must be $5,000 or more in cost. Okay, so that's the distinction between fixed asset and equipment cost, which is $5,000, or just regular purchases that need pre-approval. So there is a distinction. However, what we want to make sure of is that anything over $3,500 has proper prior approval. And then again, we want to make sure that you have a way of maintaining it through an inventory list, et cetera. And of course, make sure that you're having proof of purchase for those items, and we'll want to look at those receipts. We also asked some questions around supplanting. How are you confirming that supplanting is not taking place? And that will largely just be a discussion. How do you make sure that your agency is not supplanting with BSCC funds? There is no match for this program, so number 7 doesn't apply. We'll want to ask you about any project income. If you generate income from grant funds, remember, with an advance payment grant, we had talked about making sure that if you have the money in an interest-bearing account, that you are reporting that interest. I don't think we have any rental assistance. No, this is who cohort 1, so we shouldn't have any rental assistance people on here, but another example of project income Some of our rental assistance programs may be having the clients pay them a certain portion of their rent. Well, that would count as project income, and that would need to be documented. So you'll just want to make sure that if you are doing anything that generates funds from grant dollars, that income is documented as project income. And then if you do get project income, when you are ready to use it, you complete a budget mod, and then you explain what you intend to do with how you want to use those dollars. So we'll just be asking you about project income. I don't think many of you have that, so I don't think that'll be a major part to deal with. We go back into subcontracts from the fiscal position. And so what we want to know here is whether or not the grantee requires the subcontract agency to submit source documentation. So just like we ask for source documentation for your invoices, you should be doing the same thing from your subcontractor, just to make sure that they're claiming or billing in accordance with their MOU and plan with you guys to spend the ARG dollars. So then we ask you, what kinds of documentation do you request? And these are the different kinds of documentation we want to know. Do you have them submit a list of positions, documentation of staff hours, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll identify all that apply. And then if so, of course, we're going to be asking you to see that source documentation. We're going to assess whether or not that documentation is sufficient. And then we also want to know if you all conduct desk audits of your subcontracted agencies. If you do, what's the process? And then E should actually say, does the grantee conduct site visits? And then if so, what is the process? Now, D and E are not requirements for ARG funds. However, it is highly encouraged. It is highly encouraged that if you are subcontracting, that you are conducting desk audits and site visits to make sure your subcontractors are on par with the deliverables. Because at the end of the day, if you cannot justify your subcontractors' expenses, then those costs will be borne by your organization. So it really is imperative that you make sure you put as many fail-safes in place to help make sure that your subs are also doing what they need to do. Because we do not monitor your sub, we will monitor you. However, when we go to the sub, we will ask them for other documentation. So please coach your subcontractors to know that we will request their information, we will request their documents. We will also want to talk to their fiscal people. So you'll want to make sure that you have all of those folks prepared for our visit as well. Audits, this program does not require an audit in this cohort at least. So you would mark NA here. But then for B, we want to know if your organization has had any audits of its internal control structure within the last 2 years. And if you have, then we'll ask you about any findings around control structure, internal controls. And that's the audit section or the fiscal section. So then we go to program review. Program review, number 1, does not apply because this grant does not require a governing body. So that's an automatic no or NA. Then we go into evidence-based interventions. Here we want to know if you are implementing evidence-based interventions or strategies. And if you are, we want to know what source are you using to determine that that intervention or strategy is evidence-based. 1, evidence-based interventions are not a requirement for grant dollars. So if for some reason you are not using evidence-based practices or evidence-based interventions, it is not a finding. We do encourage evidence-based strategies and interventions. However, if you are not using anything that has been formally identified as an evidence-based intervention, meaning it has been tested and proven, usually those sources will include clearinghouses of sorts, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to make sure if you are using evidence-based practices that you are identifying them from qualified sources. And then we want to know if you are using evidence-based practices, do you have a quality assurance or fidelity monitoring process in place? Because when you're doing evidence-based, the goal is to maintain fidelity to that process. So we want to know, how are you maintaining fidelity? How are you spot checking for fidelity, etc.? We want to know about assessment tools. So if you're providing direct services, we want to know, do you assess for risk, need, and or responsivity? Again, this question for risk, need, or responsivity is really looking at the evidence-based piece of your strategies or interventions. If you are using a different intake assessment, but are not assessing formally for criminogenic risk, need, or responsivity, you would mark this question no for risk, need, or responsivity, but you could document that you are using your own in-house assessment tool or some other type of assessment tool to determine where their needs are for your program. So this question is geared toward the criminogenic risk, needs, and responsivity tools. However, if that is not what you're using, question D is where you will explain to us how you are, what you are assessing for and what that process is like, and how you are determining proper interventions for your clientele based on the assessment process that you have in place. We talk about staff training. We want to know, do your program staff receive an orientation and or training that is relevant to the grant project? I can only assume that you all have some level of a training process when new employees are hired. You take them through, HR practices and how to do this or how to get that, how to sign in, et cetera, et cetera. What we want to know is, are you training your staff on ARG uniquely? So that your staff will know how to utilize the ARG services, how to classify clients appropriately, et cetera, et cetera. And then we want to know if there are specific opportunities for ongoing training, not specific. Are there opportunities for ongoing training for the staff that are affiliated with your ARG project? So, do you have opportunities for your staff to, take more motivational interviewing classes, or to do, other types of intervention training, et cetera, et cetera. So we just want to understand how you are keeping your staff relevant with what's happening in the field. Of course, we go back to policies and procedures. These are big for us. So we want to know, do you have a program manual or program policies and procedures that are specific to the grant project? You may have some overall organizational policies that may govern some general eligibility, et cetera, but we do expect that you will have something unique for ARG. It does not mean we want you to go out and create a whole new policy for ARG. However, you may want to add an addendum or an amendment to that policy page that then provides that specific detail for eligibility for ARG, how you do certain processes within that component of the program. So you will want to have some stuff that is unique and specific to ARG. And then we want to make sure that those ARG policies are accessible to all of your staff, so that they can go back at any time if they don't know what to expect. they can go to the policy and say, oh, this is how we do things. So that's the importance of having those policies in place. We also ask you about case management and tracking. We want to know if you have an automated or web-based case management system. And if you do not, then we just want to know, how are you tracking what services clients are engaging in, or kind of where they are in the process of your service delivery model. So we'll want to be able to see that. Source documentation. This is where we'll get into your client files. We want to make sure that you have intake forms, assessment tools, case plans, case notes. Do you have sign-in sheets for the different activities that your participants are signing in for, whether it be classes or groups or one-on-one? So we'll be looking in client files for that specific type of information. We'll talk a little bit about your progress reports if they're current. We'll also be looking at the client records to confirm that the information in the progress report is supported in your project files or in your case management files. Almost lastly, problems. We want to know if you're having any problems with your service delivery or your operational models. And then if so, explain them. We do know, as we heard on this call, COVID has impacted everything. So we anticipate that we'll see some issues here that attack COVID as the culprit. Not a problem. We expect to see it. Then we want to know if you intend to continue service delivery after these grant funds expire. How do you plan to sustain this program that you have been able to either start or expand with your ARG funding? And that is the fiscal piece. This last section is data collection and evaluation. And because there is no formal evaluation plan or report for this project, this section you do not need to answer. This will just simply be a NA, or you can just leave that off. You don't have to do that piece because you do not have the data or information for that. And then after we complete the visit, this is where some of that report information starts to come into play. We want to know, do you need any technical assistance? And then we'll determine if you're meeting all of the grant requirements, or if we need to go into a compliance improvement plan or something else. So that is the CMV tool in its entirety. That is an overview of the information that you should be collecting and making sure that you have available. Please remember, if you tell me you have it, I want to see it. So make sure that as you are gathering this information, you are also keeping your hands on the actual documentation to share. Go ahead, Ava. Ava, if you're talking, you're on mute. Okay, go ahead.
If we don't have the policies and procedures manual, is that a significant finding?
It could be, yes.
Okay, because I didn't know we had to have a policies and procedures manual for this grant.
Yes, absolutely. You have time to work on it though.
Okay.
So any of you who do not have these items in place, please start now. Please start now. Because we're going to be scheduling more visits. So it is in your best interest to start sooner rather than later. If you have not done these things already, please, please, please start now. If you have questions, if you need any additional information from us, please make sure that you reach out, and then we can go from there. There were some questions in here.
Tanya?
Yes.
One of the questions was from Melissa. We're a smaller organization and do not have much in the way of written policy and procedure. We do have few such as grievance policies, etc. What level of policy and procedures do you want to see?
we want to see everything that you have. So we want to see your overall organizational policies, and we really want to see how ARG falls within that policy structure. So what are you using to determine what applies or what works for the ARG clientele and the ARG staff? So I can't even begin to try to give you like the scope of what that'll look like.
That's all in chat, but Rocky has his hand up.
Okay.
Thank you for that. This is a hell of a lot. When I must have missed it, Tanya. When are you all going to start these visits?
Oh, they've started.
Oh, they've started.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shit. How do we find them?
I started them in February. I started my first one in February.
Okay. How do we find out where?
I'll email you. I'll reach out and I'll notify you a couple of weeks in advance, probably between 3 and 4 weeks in advance. And you'll have time to, make sure that you've gathered your documents, et cetera, et cetera. That's the reason I'm saying, if you do not have your policies in place, et cetera, you should absolutely begin working on those now. Just assume as of right now, you have at least 4 weeks before you get notification that you'll be up for a CMV. So I recommend that you just start working on that document, print that document out, and just start going through it, making sure that you can answer all of those questions affirmatively and that you have all of the documentation in place to support the answers that you give us.
All right.
And again, remember, we want to help you. Okay? We want to help you. So if you are running into struggles, reach out and let us know. We can't help you if we don't know what the problem is. So our goal is to provide as much support and as much guidance as we can, and then to hopefully lead you in the right direction. If we can't do something about it, we can at least lead you to the right place. I see some other questions in the chat.
One sec, I'll go ahead and read them for you, Tanya.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so somebody asked to put the document back in the chat, so I'll go ahead and enter that. And I have a concern in that we just found out about cohort 3 funding opportunities. Will we have a chance to get those grants submitted prior to having to prepare for the visit? Again, we are a small group and this is a lot. And that was from Melissa.
Melissa, can you unmute? I'm not sure I'm understanding your question.
Sorry, I was having some trouble unmuting. Yes, I mean, actually, I subscribe to the BSCC website, but this is actually the first I've heard about the new funding opportunities. And we're a smaller group. I'm the ED and I'm the grant writer. And I'm just kind of concerned, like, what if we, I don't know when we're going to be scheduled, but I think, and somebody else has echoed this as well, that this is due in 3 weeks. That's a lot of work to do to submit the grants and then also to prepare for these visits. So
well, I'm not doing any CMV visits with any of you guys. I don't think, no. I have one WHO group, but I'm visiting them this week. But if you're applying for the grant, you should be fine. I'm not visiting anybody here in the next 3 or 4 weeks. Okay. Meaning you have at least 3 or 4 weeks before you get a notice from me that says, I'm coming to your area.
Okay, great. All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any more questions?
Yes. The next one is from Doric. We had a subcontractor for several months at the start of our program, but ended the subcontract over a year ago. Do we still need to include them on the monitoring visit?
Yes, if they received ARG grant funds, then yes, we will want to look at that.
We have the source documentation on that, but I guess the question is, should we inform them that you'll be coming out to visit them as well, or should we have a representative from Young Women's Freedom Center to be on site? I guess I'm wondering because the relationship isn't the same that it was, and so I don't want to.
What we would at most what we would want to do is to speak with them. We'll probably want to talk to their fiscal staff and just look at that type of information. So you will want to prep them just to be ready, just in case.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next one is, given that the proposals, this is from Mary Weaver, given that the proposals are due in 3 weekish, can the visits possibly wait until after? Many of us don't have a bench of people to do all of this. So I think that was basically what you answered a minute ago. And then thank you, Evelyn, for entering the link on the chat. And that's it.
Awesome. All right. So if there are no other questions around the CMV, all I will say there is please go to the website, print the document, and start to get your stuff in order. Like I said before, I am scheduling, I am getting out. I will not be visiting anywhere for the next 3 to 4 weeks. I just don't see that happening with the RFP closing. But at any rate, please do be prepared to have some visits, probably mid to late April, and then on in throughout the rest of the year. So with that said, the last thing up is just a reminder that your invoices and progress reports are due on May 15th, and your next project director meeting is scheduled for May 31st at 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And if there are no final thoughts, questions, comments, issues, or concerns, I will bid you all a wonderful Tuesday evening. And say I look forward to seeing some of those applications come in for cohort 3, as well as just seeing you guys in the future when we come out and do some visits.
Thank you, Tanya. Before we do go ahead and close out, I do want to confirm, I do have a few grantees as a no-show. If you do hear your name and you are here, please go ahead and enter it in the chat. I have Oakland Private Industry, Self-Awareness and Recovery, and Life Community. Everyone else, thank you again for attending today and for entering your information in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I thought I saw, I know Oakland Private Industry was here. I saw Glenn Bell. I saw him in one of the breakout rooms. So I know Oakland was here, Adriana.
Oakland Pick is here. I'm right
Oh,
here.
yeah, there he is.
There you are.
My bad. I'm sorry.